Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana, and we're here at 318 Latino Studios for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home, and can't wait to have today's discussion. Our guest is Nell Shehee. So, Nell, thanks for being here.
And thank you for having me, Jeffrey.
Of course. Thanks for making the time and being here. Can't wait to talk to you and really, really appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, I'll hop in, Nell. I told you.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, we'll start here. In 2022, you partnered with KTAL NBC 6 to launch the Operation Kindness Initiative. My first question is, tell me about the genesis of this initiative, its mission, and some of how it works, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, I have to harken back to people like your mother, Sylvia Goodman, and my mother, Virginia Shehee, and the state of the world right now. There's so many challenges that we are facing. So many cultures are at odds with each other. Racism seems to have not been abated. It seems to be going on. I did a podcast, I participated in a documentary with Dominique Ben from Channel 12, and it was about racism in the 60s. And as we were talking, it was just, wait a minute, all this is still going on. And how long ago was that? And so I thought, well, gosh, people just need to follow the golden rule and just be kind. And from that was sort of the genesis, I guess, of the idea. And I thought, I'm not here to preach to anyone at all. I just want to celebrate kindness and remind people that it's okay to be kind. And that's our tagline, is it's okay to be kind. And then someone told me that KTAL was doing something similar called KTAL Cares, and I got with Mark McKay, the general manager, and he was interested in it. And they've been extremely generous. We've been doing this now well over a year and a half. And I produce videos with them but they support it. They pay for it. And then the news part of it, their news section does news stories on kindness. And we did it the first year, and I thought, okay, well, thank you very much. And Mark said, I want to keep doing this because people have responded to that. I think people are tired of the way we're treating each other. And it's a very interesting topic. Like, how do we get to this point? How can you be doing a retrospective about the 60s and the civil rights movement and people like Dr. Lewis Pendleton and Reverend Blake, but then some things are still going on. They're very similar in nature, the violence, all of that. So the political unrest, there's just a lot of chaos in the world right now. And I just want to but suggest to people, let's remember to be kind, because it's a very potent weapon, maybe the wrong word to use, okay? But the effect of being kind, I saw it with your mother, I saw it with my mother. Just people want to matter. Everybody wants an attaboy or an attagirl or whatever, whomever. It's not hard to be kind. And there are lots of different ways to be kind. And being kind is free. You could just go up to someone and say, hey, how you doing? I like your dress. Or pat them on the shoulder. Or if you see someone in a restaurant with maybe an older lady with some grandkids, and you could tell maybe that's not where they usually are, and this is a special occasion, regardless of their race, color, creed. And, pay for that meal. Do something like that. And kindness also has a ripple effect. If I'm kind to you, it make you feel good. Chances are you're going to make someone else feel good. And we need to respect each other. It's about self-respect too, and respecting our different races, expecting colors, respecting different religions, and not being afraid of our differences, but celebrating our differences.
And tell me, the videos that you make with KTAL, like how do you choose the subjects, and how does that process work a little bit?
What we're doing is a two-pronged thing. The news division at KTAL, Jackie Jovic or whoever will go out and do a story on celebrating kindness or recognizing someone who has been kind or somebody that people recognize as being kind. And she does that. And then I, on the other end of it, will ask community leaders to talk about kindness and why it's important, people who have some influence. And everyone said yes that I asked. And I was actually a bit surprised. But I explained what I was trying to do. And we've had people as diverse as we've had Henry Price, as you know, Henry Price, Sonia Bales, Casey Kilpatrick. We just did a video with Lamar Gorey, the superintendent of schools, and no one said no. And I think you should be kind to animals, too. That's important. So we went to Robinson Rescue and talked to the veterinarian there. Now I can't remember her name. Andrea Everson. She did a great. It's just 30-second spots is what they are, and then at the end we asked them to say, look at the camera and say, it's okay to be kind. Like that's an option. That's an option to be kind. And I don't think people remember that or remember how powerful it is, because you can change a person's day, Jeffrey, by being kind, or you can change their whole life by being kind.
I love it.
So that's it. It's just spreading the message. That's all it is.
Operation Kindness. Mm-hmm. It's great. So I'm going to shift gears for a second. I've asked other guests on the podcast a similar question to the one I'm about to ask you. My question is, and you haven't seen these questions in advance, but I'm just curious how you would answer it. My question is, how, in your opinion, do we move our community more from a quote-unquote me community to a we community?
Well, by understanding the value of we. Okay, remember that this country, in the beginning, people were escaping very bad conditions in various parts of the world to come here to the New World and to have the opportunity to make something of themselves. And everyone wants to do that. Everyone, I think, values opportunity. And there's opportunity in being we. We have to move together as a community. We have to recognize and celebrate our differences. That's the main thing. I mean, you have qualities that I don't have. And so what's puzzles me is that suddenly we're back to that, you're in this group, you're in that group, never the twain shall meet. Whereas before, people worked together because they had to. A lot of people came to this country under very different circumstances, of course. But nobody was really superior to anyone else. Everyone had the common goal of the American dream, trying to make something of yourself and not at the expense of someone else. You don't have to hurt someone to get ahead. And I guess it's kind of like a tapestry. There are all these different colors and all these different threads, and different cultures bring many different things to the table. And again, it's something that we should be proud of and celebrate and be curious about and say, oh my goodness, I didn't think about that, or it's a different perspective. And so to me, it's a strengthening thing.
Love it. Totally agree. All right, so you're going to have to bear with me with this next question because it's super long, but just hang in there with me. So as you know, and you've already mentioned it, as you know, like you, I have a very strong and fearless mom.
Yes.
In yes. fact, one of her heroes, biggest role models, and one of the few people she looked up to was your mom, Virginia Shehee. Well, you once said the following in speaking about your mom, Virginia. You said, Virginia Shehee was a phenomenon. She was a mother, she was a business person, she was a philanthropist, she was a politician, she was a do-gooder. She was, to some people, an angel. She cared about people very much, and I'm very proud to be one of her 4 children. I know your mom has had a major influence on you. Would you mind talking about some of the lessons she taught you and some of the ways her legacy drives and guides you today?
All right, we'll have to maybe revisit the question, but some of the lessons she taught me were, well, there's a children's book called The Little Engine That Could, okay? And what's the big line in that? I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And Mother came from a very humble background, okay? Her grandparents started our companies from nothing, from absolutely nothing. And so that's why I think it's interesting when we have the Virginia K. Shehee Most Influential Woman Awards, and we have now expanded it to giving awards to 6 high school women in addition to the 6 women who are older than high school, shall we say. And it was woman-driven from the very beginning. And Mother had been through a divorce. Some people didn't know that about her. And the question I always get is, we want to know about the personal side of Virginia. So, of course, I know about the personal side of Virginia. And it's curious to know what makes them what they are, right? And, of course, your mother's story is very interesting as well. And I'm not sure if I recall this correctly, but wasn't she the first Jewish president of a Catholic club or organization or something like that?
That's possible.
Do you remember that?
I can't.
I mean, but she was that kind of power that comes from your mother or my mother is very interesting, because you think, okay, where is it coming from? And I still think that about my mother. She's been gone for 8 years, but I think it's coming from humble background, being relatively poor, and wanting to be somebody, wanting to make it, but also her mother, my grandmother, Nell Kilpatrick, I'm named for her, raised her to be kind. That was a huge thing. I mean, human beings can't achieve things if they're not getting along, right? And that seems like such a simplistic thing, but people don't understand that. It's like, oh no, you're different, I'm different, let's fight each other, let's be unfriendly, let's be enemies, let's not get along. But that's not how it works. I mean, your mother was the queen of networking, as my mother was too. And you know as well as I do, if you want to get something done, you have to collaborate. And your fellow man, they're not all white or all black or all Hispanic or all gay, whatever. We're all different. So if you want to get anything done, really, in business or with the not-for-profit organizations, you need to collaborate. And your mother and mine were geniuses at that.
Yep.
Absolutely. But the thing is, they certainly, I'm sure, got some satisfaction from that, because how can you not? If I go to a restaurant and just pay for somebody's breakfast, does that make me feel bad? No, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel special. So volunteering, joining all these different boards and volunteering your time or your efforts, your expertise or whatever, of course you feel good. And that's like the thing about kindness that some people don't realize. It helps you almost more than it helps the person that you're being kind to, because it makes you feel good, right? And that creates harmony. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. No, I love that. And I will say, just I didn't know your mom well, but I had the few interactions I had are ones that I'll always remember. And I just
I think your ordinal position in the family, where you are born, what number you are, oldest, middle, youngest, has a lot to do with who you are. And my mother was an only child for about 16 years, actually, 14 or 16. And then she had her parents had another daughter. But mother was an only child for at least 14 years. And I think she had a lot of attention. And I'm not saying that having siblings is a bad thing, because you learn a lot by having siblings. You learn how to share, you learn how to fight, you learn how to ask for what you want. That's important. But I think that her parents spent a lot of time with her because she was an only child. And I remember I didn't achieve academically like my mother did. I didn't flunk out or anything like that, but I didn't cover myself in glory, shall we say. But I told my mother one time when I was in high school, I'm going to go up to the attic and I'm going to get your report cards and I'm going to see what you did. Well, I found them, from the first grade because they lived in Texas originally. And of course, they're all A's and maybe one B. So I was like, God, from the first grade, Mama, but she always wanted to succeed and always wanted to please her parents. That was very important to her. And she saw that my grandmother was very much like my mother. My mother was just the second generation of that, and, as I know, I said it earlier, in business, if you want to succeed, you have to get along. You have to provide a service, whatever that is, and convince people that, you're being fair and reasonable and you're trying to help people. And that's what it boils down to. I mean, it's trust. A lot of it is trust.
Yeah, I love that. No, you answered the question. I love it. And
I have lots of stories about my mother.
Well, we may come back because I was moved. I listened to a talk you gave where you were talking about her in D.C. and seeing the wife of the editor of the Washington Post.
Right. And here she was, just a young, newly married woman whose marriage wasn't going well. She was married to my father, they just didn't make it. They didn't succeed as a couple. And she'd always admired Katharine Graham and just happened to see her. It was just, amazing. And that my mother looked at her and aspired to be her. And I think she succeeded in doing that.
And you said Katharine gave her maybe just a little
just
look.
Just a tiny little look is what my mother said. Just a slight, acknowledgement is, to say, hey, it's going to get better. It's okay. Because Katharine Graham's life was very interesting as well. She had a very domineering husband who took his life. And then she's in charge of one of the biggest newspapers in the country, right? So I think struggle is a big part of that. I think that when you struggle, when you have gone without, I think you can develop an empathy or a sympathy towards people. It's...
and your mom had done that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people don't think of my mother as being a single mom with 3 young children under the age of 4.5. They see her as, Virginia Shehee. She wore, the pearls, and they think, she's, in full. It was like Athena burst out of Zeus's head, fully formed. She wasn't fully formed. She came from somewhere, and she worked hard, and she willed herself, I think, into who she became. And I think she was an intrinsically good person, too. But she was I'm sure your mother was, she was strict. I mean, was it?
She was not a pushover.
No.
Yes. All right. So in addition to what we've already talked about, what I'd like you to talk about is just, I'm curious, as you look around our community today, what, above and beyond what you've already mentioned, what are some of the things that concern you the most? Just as you look around Shreveport-Bossier community today, what are some of the things that jump out at you as most concerning?
Downtown, and strides are being taken to develop downtown. That's always been a problem. It's a problem in many cities. When the buildings get deserted, the businesses go, and then people are we need to revitalize downtown, and I think people are working on that. Liz Swain is working hard on that. There are many other organizations that are doing that too as well. That's where everything kind of began. It's the nucleus of business, and those buildings are so gorgeous, and they have such an extraordinary history, all of them. So I think that's important. And the social justice concerns me as well, but that's everywhere. Okay, it's not just in the South; it's in the North, it's in other places as well. That concerns me. That people can be treated differently, or people can be treated violently because of their color, because of their different background. I mean, how did we go from the 60s civil rights movement to some very bad things that have happened to people of color in the last several years? So that concerns me greatly.
And on the other side of that, just as you look around, what are some of the things that, just as you look around our community, what are some of the things that make you hopeful or optimistic that we're headed in the right direction as a community?
I think there are a lot of people that care about Shreveport very much. And I think they're willing to roll up their shirt sleeves and get involved. And that's a very good thing. I mean, beyond that, I mean, you always have the kids, they're going to, you went away, I went away. That's just what kids do, but coming back and trying to make a life here. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener. I mean, I had a wonderful time when I was away in upstate New York, and I'm sure you had a good time too in California, right?
That's right.
Yeah. But people want roots again. And I'm certainly not an expert on technology by any means, but this bothers me when I see people so attached to their iPads and their phones, and I don't know what kind of effect that's going to have on younger people long term. Maybe it's okay, but conversation, one-on-one, I think that needs to be developed again. What do you think about that? Seriously, I mean, I know you're the question asker, but what
you can ask me questions.
I mean, I think technology is wonderful in many respects, but
I think listening is
it a lost art?
I don't know if it's a lost art, but I think it's an important tool that we all have to be vigilant to make sure that we continue to try and practice it and do it well.
And I think the Shreveport-Bossier Tourism and Convention Bureau is doing a good job. Like, look at the farmers market. That's blowing and going downtown. Emery Gentry is the marketing director of that. She's
does
doing
a great job.
Great job with that. And I think Centenary College is certainly finding ways to market itself. And have the freshmen all go to Paris. I mean, how do you top that? But you just have to have people that care, and I think that people do care enough so that if we just continue doing what we're doing, but not quitting. See, your mother was not a quitter, and my mother wasn't either. So even when things don't look good or seem maybe not so much depressing, but maybe this isn't happening as quickly as I would like it to happen, they just kept going. And I think that's important, to just keep going, because everybody has a bad day, right? Sometimes you think, oh, well, why am I doing this? But then the next day, you got to remember that there's another day, and you got to remember what your goal is.
Speaking of, I have a Virginia question for you. So one of my favorite quotes, I'm gonna kind of butchered it about my mom, but one of my favorite sayings that my mom has is don't tell me that it can't be done. Just tell me whether or not you can do it.
That your mother
my
said.
mom
Yeah.
would that would is what she loved to say is, don't tell me that something can't be done, just tell me whether or not you can do it, because if you can, I'm gonna find a way to do it with someone else, or I'm gonna find another way to do it. So is there something like that about your mom? Was there a saying or
I keep looking at you, I'm sorry, but
it's all good.
It reminds me of Secretariat and the what is it, the blinders or whatever they had on their eyes. They just, not that your mother is a horse or my mother is a horse, but I'm talking about that intensity and that power, and they got focused. They just locked into something.
Tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision. That's exactly the right word for it. And I'm still working on that. I mean, people like Sylvia and Virginia they just didn't let extraneous things get in the way of their goal. They had this laser focus. It's going to happen. And as you know, you have these like naysayers that just, that's just kind of flies, go away. They weren't deterred. And that was an extraordinary quality, I think, in both of those women, their determination, and nobody's going to tell me no. I mean, mother just didn't accept that word, and your mother did not as well.
It's true.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, she developed a lot of wonderful things in Shreveport as well, Siveport and Robinson. And I don't think it's now I'm sounding gender biased, but I don't think it's an accident that the women got those things done. Okay, certainly men can too, but you got some pretty powerful women that didn't care if they were women, they just did it. They weren't concerned about not being men, they're just going to do it anyway. So just get out of my way, and I'm going to make it happen. And that's what they did. Absolutely.
Well, those were my main questions. Is there anything that we have all day? Is there anything that you'd like to discuss or talk about, or that's been on your mind that you'd like to share before we?
Not in particular. Really, the only thing is that going back to Operation Kindness, and it's okay to be kind, just let's remember how powerful that is. It's a very, very powerful tool, and it doesn't cost anything, really. I mean, you can be kind by giving a scholarship to someone if you want, but really and truly, just looking them in the eyes and saying, good job, nice shirt, let's have a cup of coffee. I mean, I think it's important that people keep relating to each other as human beings and not as Black, Hispanic, white. We're human beings. And I was on one of the stations here locally talking about one of our sponsorships. And I said, there are no two people that are alike. Everyone is different, but we all have a heart. So let's listen to our heart and let's respect our differences. That's it.